That cruise cabin you've been eyeing for your upcoming trip might look ideal, but it could secretly be a nightmare in disguise. Travelers think avoiding loud zones is enough, yet modern ships hide far more frustrating surprises. From structural voids that generate non-stop vibration, to aft balconies that collect grime from engines, to new window-style verandas that trap heat, problems can appear where you least expect them. Deck plans won't warn you about these design flaws. So before you spend serious money on a room that ruins your sleep, here are the cabin zones you should avoid and the layout quirks catching cruisers off guard on many modern ships today. 1. Cabins under the gym. We're starting with the most common mistake travelers make, and it's one that ruins more vacations than almost anything else: booking a cabin directly under the ship's fitness center. The deck plan might make the gym look like a harmless, quiet space. Some people even see it as a bonus. Great, I'll be motivated to work out. What they don't realize is that gym noise is uniquely brutal. Modern cruise gyms open shockingly early. Some operate 24/7, and even those that don't typically unlock around 5 a.m. And unlike normal foot traffic, fitness activity produces impact noise, forceful, repetitive, and impossible to fully soundproof. Newer ships are making this worse, not better. Many fitness centers now include HYYT zones, CrossFit-style areas, sled tracks, and dedicated weight-dropping platforms. When one of those heavy barbells hits the floor, the vibration doesn't just travel downward. It ripples like a shockwave right through the steel frame. Even treadmills cause chaos. The constant rhythm of 3 or 4 machines running at full speed feels like someone pounding directly above your head. On days when the gym is busy, that pounding can continue for hours. Add in free weight clanks, spin class music, and early morning trainers dragging equipment across the floor, and you have continuous disturbance from before sunrise until late at night. If you're a light sleeper, if you enjoy quiet mornings, or if you simply want to avoid the feeling of weights crashing above you, check the deck plan with extreme caution. If you see treadmills, lifting zones, or a cardio studio above your cabin, move immediately. No cabin discount is worth being jolted awake at dawn by the fitness crowd. 2. Directly under the pool deck. Right next to the gym on the list of worst places you can stay is anywhere directly under the pool deck, or anything connected to the pool deck. At first glance, it doesn't seem threatening. After all, pools are outside. How bad could it be? The answer: very bad. The daytime noises are manageable. Splashing, footsteps, the occasional bass from a poolside DJ. That's not the problem. The trouble starts when the sun comes up. Every morning, long before guests wake up, the crew begins resetting the pool area. They drag hundreds of loungers across wet decks. They stack and unstack chairs. They reset cabanas. They move carts full of towels and equipment across metal and composite flooring. That grinding, scraping sound carries directly through the ceiling of any cabin below. The loudest part? Loungers sliding across damp deck planks. The resonance is shockingly sharp, especially in megaships where the open deck spans the entire width of the vessel. But it gets worse. New cruise ships have turned pool decks into near 24/7 entertainment hubs. Late-night movies, deck parties, after-hours hot tubs, live bands, and themed nights can run until midnight or later. Then, after only a few hours of quiet, the morning reset begins all over again. Some ships add jogging tracks, water playgrounds, or splash zones above staterooms, creating non-stop stomping, running, and thumping overhead. If the deck plan shows anything like Lido deck sun deck seating, jogging track water park, or slides pool equipment rooms, and your cabin is under it, you are in the noise splash zone. Always avoid these areas unless you enjoy waking up before sunrise. 3. Cabins. Near theaters, clubs, and lounges. Noise doesn't only come from above. Some of the loudest areas on a cruise ship are located on multi-deck entertainment levels, and cabins around these spaces experience sound in ways travelers don't expect. The biggest offenders are theaters, nightclubs, piano bars, atrium stages, and live music lounges. The issue isn't just sound volume, it's bass. Modern ships use immersive audio systems, subwoofers the size of refrigerators, and directional speakers designed to push low frequencies deep into the room. Those bass waves travel through the steel superstructure like vibrations through a tuning fork. You won't just hear the music, you'll feel it. If a nightclub runs until 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., the bed can literally tremble. Even the best earplugs can't stop vibration. But nighttime shows aren't the only problem. Theaters often run afternoon rehearsals, technical sound checks, and stage crew training. Newer ships with acrobatic theaters may even rehearse aerial routines during the day. If your goal is a quiet midday rest, forget it. And then there's atrium noise bleed. Many modern ships feature towering multi-level atriums that act like giant echo chambers. A DJ or live violinist playing on Deck 6 might be clearly audible in cabins on Decks 7, 8, and 9. Sound rises, and the open space architecture gives it nowhere to go but upward. If silence matters at all, avoid cabins above, below, or directly beside major entertainment venues. The noise isn't occasional, it's built into the ship's daily schedule. 4. Next to crew access/white space. This one fools almost everyone. On deck plans, you'll see big blocks of blank white areas between guest cabins. Many assume these are empty spaces, storage, unused zones, or simply structure. But those blank spaces are often the loudest parts of the entire ship. Those sections hide service corridors, crew stairwells, housekeeping pantries, equipment lockers, and luggage handling areas. These are the arteries of the ship, the areas crew use constantly throughout the day and night. If your cabin is directly across from or beside one of these staff doors, expect noise, heavy fire doors slamming, room service carts rattling at 6 a.m., housekeepers organizing supplies, glassware clinking, crew conversations during shift changes, luggage carts rumbling on the final night. The last night of the cruise is the worst. Thousands of suitcases get moved through these corridors, often until 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. If you're next to one of those access points, you will hear every cart, every shout, every thud. Cabins facing elevator lobbies can be nearly as bad. Even though elevator motors are quiet, the crowds are not. You don't need to book far away from the elevators, just avoid anything that opens directly onto the lobby. 1 or 2 cabins down the hall makes a massive difference. Always choose cabins surrounded by other cabins, not blank spaces that hide noise sources. 5. Near anchors, thrusters, and gangways. Now we move into the mechanical danger zones. These aren't about music or crowds. They're about the raw power of the ship itself. Forward lower deck cabins are often located close to the anchor machinery. When a ship tender offshore drops anchor, the chain and hydraulic systems produce a grinding metallic roar that can shake the entire area. It often happens before sunrise. If you've never heard it before, it's startling and impossible to sleep through. But many new ships don't rely on anchors anymore for positioning. Instead, they use dynamic positioning systems, which employ bow and stern thrusters to hold the ship steady. These thrusters create low-frequency vibration that continues for long stretches and can make the cabin feel like it's humming. Nearby gangways add another layer of noise. Cabins next to embarkation points hear scanners beeping, early morning announcements, rolling carts, and crowds assembling for excursions. If peace and quiet matter, avoid cabins near the ship's working zones, especially anything near the bow at lower levels. 6. Forward balconies that look peaceful but become wind tunnels. A forward-facing balcony seems like the most cinematic place you could stay on a ship. It feels adventurous, almost like you're standing on the bow of your own private yacht. But what cruise lines rarely mention is how brutally unfriendly these cabins can become once the ship is moving at full speed. Because they face the direction of travel, these balconies take the brunt of the wind. And we're not talking a light breeze. It can feel like someone turned a commercial refrigerator fan directly toward your body. People often assume they'll be sipping coffee out there at sunrise, but the reality is that the second the ship accelerates, the balcony becomes cold, loud, and sometimes downright inaccessible. Some guests report needing to wedge the door shut because the wind pressure rattles it all night. These areas also splash heavily in rough seas. Water doesn't just hit the railing, it can whip across the entire balcony floor, soaking chairs and blowing mist under the bottom of the door. If you're sensitive to motion, avoid these cabins. The forward section amplifies every rise and fall of the bow, making even mild swells feel like a mechanical bull. Forward balconies sound magical on paper, but unless you enjoy strong wind, unpredictable weather, and amplified movement, it's one of the least relaxing places you can stay. 7. Far forward cabins near the hull curvature. These are different from forward balconies. This time we're talking about interior or ocean view cabins that sit deep inside the front of the ship, right where the hull narrows and every sound echoes. These rooms are acoustically sensitive, meaning they pick up noises that don't bother most other cabins. When the ship hits waves, the sound is not gentle. It can be a deep metallic boom that reverberates through the steel, like someone striking a giant drum. At night, this can wake even the heaviest sleepers. The hull can also creak as the ship flexes, which is entirely normal but incredibly distracting when the noise is happening 2 feet from your pillow. Then there's the motion. The farther forward you go, the more the ship behaves like a seesaw. The bow gets the biggest vertical swing, so even calm seas can feel exaggerated in these rooms. People often report feeling queasy in a cabin they would have handled fine in midship. Even the crew tends to avoid off-duty rest areas here because the motion and noise are simply too much. If crew members don't want to sleep there on a free ship, that should tell you something. 8. Aft cabins that seem scenic but collect soot and vibrations. Aft balconies are among the most tempting on any ship. The wake views are stunning, the sunsets are perfect, and the sound of trailing water is relaxing. But what many cruisers don't realize is how inconsistent the experience can be depending on the ship's propulsion system. Older ships and many mid-sized vessels produce exhaust particulates that drift downward and stick to aft surfaces. This can leave furniture stained, railings grimy, and clothing smelling like a damp barbecue pit. Some guests report wiping the balcony table only to find their cloth pitch black afterward. Even on newer ships, vibration is common in this region. When the engines ramp up, especially when the ship is fighting a current or increasing speed, the rear cabins feel like someone installed a massage chair under the bed frame. Some passengers sleep through it. Others find it impossible to ignore. Aft cabins can still be wonderful, but you need to know the exact ship class before choosing. On some vessels, the experience is blissful. On others, the soot and vibration are deal breakers you can only discover after you've paid. 9. Cabins directly beside or under the galley. The galley is one of the busiest, loudest parts of any cruise ship, and it never truly shuts down. Bread starts baking long before sunrise. Dishwashing continues late into the night. Carts roll back and forth, and industrial mixers, grinders, and stainless steel surfaces create a symphony of clattering metal. None of that is a problem when you're inside the dining room. But if your cabin is directly beneath or beside the galley, you won't just hear the noise, you'll feel it. Kitchens contain dozens of heavy-duty rolling carts, each loaded with stacks of glassware and trays. When one moves, the wheels bang against the floor. When dishes get handled, you hear a cascade of metal and porcelain. The ship's design often hides these areas behind neutral-colored blank spaces on deck plans, which tricks passengers into thinking the zone above or next to them is empty. But that mysterious white block is often where hundreds of meals are being prepped. If you treasure sleep, avoid any cabin that sits directly under a main dining room, buffet, or room service staging area. 10. Cabins near designated smoking zones. Smoking areas on ships are heavily regulated, but that doesn't prevent smoke from traveling. Outdoor smoking zones, especially those on midship or aft, often create drifting plumes that follow the wind and get pulled into nearby balcony clusters. If you're in one of those cabins, smoke doesn't stay politely outside. It sneaks around balcony dividers and can slip inside through the ventilation gap under your sliding door. Even if you keep it shut, the smell can linger on furniture. It's most noticeable in the morning or late evening when airflow shifts direction. The worst part? Many deck plans don't clearly label smoking zones. They might place a tiny icon or mention it only on the ship's onboard map, not the booking page. This means people unknowingly select a cabin next to the one balcony section on the ship where smokers gather. If you're sensitive to smoke, or simply want fresh ocean air, avoid balconies within 2 or 3 clusters of these zones. 11. Interior cabins. Facing public promenades or interior balconies. Interior-facing cabins, especially the ones overlooking indoor promenades, boardwalk-style neighborhoods, or open atriums, seem like an upgrade compared to standard interior rooms. They give you a window view and let you see the activity below. But what cruise lines don't advertise is how inconsistent these cabins are when it comes to noise and privacy. Promenade cabins stay bright long after midnight because their windows look directly into heavily trafficked areas. While your cabin lights go off at night, the ship's main boulevard stays lit like a shopping mall. Even blackout curtains struggle to block the glow, and in the morning, the space can get noisy before you're ready to wake up. There's also the privacy problem. People across from you, or down below, can see right into your room if your curtains are open even slightly. You end up keeping them closed most of the time, which defeats the entire purpose of having a view. It's a cabin type that looks charming on a brochure but often ends up feeling like you're living in an apartment facing a busy street. 12. Connecting cabins. With thin shared doors. Cruise lines don't warn you about the biggest drawback of connecting cabins. The connecting door is far thinner and less insulated than the main cabin wall. Even if you don't open it, the sound transfer is dramatically worse. You can hear your neighbors talking, laughing, watching TV, and sometimes even opening their drawers. If a family with young kids or a loud couple is next door, every minor sound becomes unavoidable background noise. The design of these cabins also means the main beds often sit directly against the connecting wall. If the people next door wake up early or come back late, you'll hear the movement, the footsteps, and sometimes even the vibration of their headboard if they're turning over in bed. Connecting cabins are fantastic if you're traveling with the group next door, but if you're not, they're among the worst choices on the ship for sound isolation. Unless you specifically need that connecting door, avoid them entirely. 13. Obstructed view cabins that hide surprises. Obstructed view cabins are marketed as budget-friendly ocean views, but the problem is that not all obstructions are created equal, and cruise lines rarely show the full picture. Some cabins have a lifeboat covering half the view. Others have an entire lifeboat that blocks 90% of the window. Some decks have davits, winches, cranes, or other machinery directly in front of the glass. Worse, even if you're fine with the obstruction, the hardware outside might cause unexpected noise. Many lifeboats creak and sway slightly at sea. Some vessels hold lifeboat drills early in the morning, meaning loud, clanging metal or hydraulic movement can take place right outside your cabin. What's most frustrating is how vague deck plans can be. They often paint all obstructed rooms the same color, even though one might have a small railing in the corner, while another is staring directly at a bright orange lifeboat wall 2 feet away. You might save money, but unless you know the exact obstruction for your specific cabin number, you're risking a view you'll never use. 14. Infinite veranda cabins that look modern but overheat. Infinite verandas, popularized on newer ships, sound futuristic. The entire outer wall of your cabin becomes a floor-to-ceiling window that drops down like a garage door, turning your room into a semi-outdoor space. In theory, it's brilliant, but in practice, it introduces several issues that traditional balconies never had. First, airflow becomes limited. Because the veranda is technically part of the cabin interior, you must keep the climate control system off whenever the window is open. On warm days, this transforms your room into a humid greenhouse. The air can feel heavy and sticky, and it takes a long time to cool back down once you close the window. Second, the mechanism that raises and lowers the window can create a faint but constant whirring sound, especially as the ship vibrates. While some cabins are quieter than others, the luck of the draw determines whether your unit hums throughout the night. Finally, these verandas don't give you the same outdoor escape traditional balconies do. You can't step outside, you can't stand against the railing, you can't enjoy breakfast fully outdoors. It's more like opening a giant window than having a true balcony. Innovative? Yes. Relaxing? Not always. If you want fresh air without sacrificing comfort, traditional balconies are still the safer bet. 15. Guaranteed cabins with zero control over location. Guaranteed cabins are one of the biggest traps for budget-conscious cruisers. The idea sounds great. Book a cabin type, interior, ocean view, balcony, pay less, and let the cruise line assign your exact room later. But what most people don't realize is that these guarantee categories often include the least desirable rooms on the ship. You might get placed under a nightclub, over a theater, next to a crew corridor, directly under the pool deck, beside a smoking zone, or deep in the bow where motion is severe. You also might end up with a connecting cabin you didn't want or a balcony with a partial obstruction. Once the cruise line assigns your room, you cannot change it, no matter how problematic the location is. The guarantee program benefits the cruise line, not the guest. They fill the hardest to sell rooms first, and your upgrade potential is significantly lower than advertised. Even if they do bump you up, it's usually a minor improvement within the same problem area. If you're flexible and don't care where you sleep, a guarantee cabin might still be fine. But if noise, motion, smoke, or privacy matter to you, choosing your exact cabin is worth the extra cost every time. Final thoughts. Cruise lines are masters at highlighting the beauty of their ships and hiding the cabin flaws that can ruin your trip. But when you know what each location means, what noise, motion, or airflow issues it brings, you stop relying on guesswork and start choosing strategically. A cabin isn't just a place to sleep. It's your retreat, your recharge zone, and in many cases, where you spend more time than you expect. Avoid these 15 cabin traps, and your next cruise will feel dramatically smoother, quieter, and more relaxing. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever ended up in a cabin that completely surprised you, in a bad way, or one you'd never choose again? Drop the ship name and your cabin number in the comments so other cruisers can learn from it too. And if this breakdown helped you avoid a vacation disaster, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and explore the other videos on the channel for more essential cruise tips. Happy sailing!